Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So in today's video I thought I would share with you a guide to breastfeeding from 0 to 12 weeks approximately. I am not a doctor, I'm not a lactation consultant. I'm just sharing some of points and the routines that I have found very helpful with my two daughters. So I'm sharing it from a mother's point of view. I am also a pharmacist, so I have some sort of health professional background. This video in no way is trying to hate on formula feeding or promote breastfeeding or anything like that. I'm just sharing my journey and what I found helpful. The way you feed your baby is the way you feed your baby. A full baby is a happy baby, and that's all that matters. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So with my first daughter, I struggled a little bit with the breastfeeding journey initially. So it took about a week for us to establish breast milk and for the latch to happen. It was mainly the latch that I was having trouble with, and as a result the breastfeeding was a problem. And from there on in, my breast milk was up and down because of the initial hurdles I was having. So initially I had a super ample supply where I had way too much and I was like dripping all the time because she was sucking a lot. So my first tip for you for your breastfeeding journey is to start off with, if possible, I would stay in hospital for as long as you can. So when I say for as long as you can, I would aim for about 3 nights or so, because initially you will be cluster feeding overnight and the baby will be literally on your boob trying to bring in your milk. So I would stay in hospital for as long as you can, so you have the nurses trying to help you at night and you get a bit of a rest. When you go home, you're gonna have so much to do and you're gonna look at your laundry pile, you're gonna look at your kitchen, you're gonna look at your house and you're gonna be like, I have to do this, that, and there's no one really that could really take over the baby, except for usually it's you and your partner, or if you're lucky you can have another family member. By staying in hospital, you are having another set of helping hands. They know exactly what to do, and also there is usually a lactation consultant on the ward that could really help you. I would make the most out of that. So that's my second tip also, which is make use of the lactation consultant. Ask them to come look at your latch. Any questions that you have about breastfeeding while you are there, it's very easy to access them. Once you go home, you still have access to them, but obviously you're not in the same place at the same time. Other thing that I found is, for the first week, just go with the flow with the baby. Don't try to establish any routines. Don't try to establish a schedule or anything like that. The first week is gonna be very mumbo jumbo. Go with it, have fun with it. It's part of the fun and the journey with the newborn. It is a tough journey, but honestly, it passes by so quickly. I cannot believe that my eldest is already not a baby. In my head, she still is. The other thing that I found really helpful in my breastfeeding journey, and honestly I swear by it, and I would never do it without it personally. I know a lot of people do breastfeed like exclusively for a very long time without it, but I personally struggle if I didn't have it, and that is a double pump, not a single pump, a double pump and a pumping bra. Now the double pump that I use is the Pigeon brand. I will put a photo up here of what it looks like, and the pumping bra also lets you put on the pump and you can walk around the house, especially if this is not your first baby and you need to look after other children. If you want to go out, you need to do anything. You also have the option to pump or express and give them a bottle. And in saying that, I would highly recommend that you pump in the second week of life and give them a bottle, just so they are used to a bottle, because if you exclusively breastfeed without pumping, then they will really get used to the breast, they will reject the bottle, and might make your life like really hard not being able to give a bottle, because in this day and age we're all just so busy and on the go. You have 1,000,000,001 things to do, and even if you want to take just a little bit time of time off for yourself, then you have that option where you can express and go out and someone else could give them a bottle of expressed milk instead, and they won't reject it and they will already be used to it and fine with it, and the person giving the bottle won't struggle, won't freak out, etc. In general, I would probably try to do that about once a week, where you express, even if you don't need to express once a week, and give it to the baby through a bottle so they keep on practicing that skill and they don't forget it and they don't just fully get used to the breast, and you have a more of a flexible baby. Another thing that I found super helpful during breastfeeding, and that I only learnt with my second baby, I did not do it with my first baby at all, and that is to power pump before a cluster feed is about to happen. If you ever breastfed, you know cluster feeding or like the growth spurts is just the most painful thing to go through, and it happens at about 1 week, 3 weeks, 6 weeks, 3 months and 6 months, which is quite frequent. And what happens basically when I say cluster feed is that in about early evening to very late at night, they will just want to feed and feed and feed and feed, and they will not want to get off your breast at all because they're trying to increase the milk supply. So what I've tried this time around, and so far I feel like it's been working, and it worked for the first week, third week and sixth week for the cluster feeds, is that I power pump right before. Her turnover week is Tuesday, so what I do is that on about Saturday, Sunday I start pumping extra. So there are a couple of ways of doing it. So the first one is to do it after every feed, so I would pump for about 20 minutes after every feed, or you just do it once for like 2 hours. I usually do the 2 hours and I just do it at nighttime. So after her last feed of about like 6-7, I would pump for 2 hours. I would do it just watching TV, and hopefully she is sleeping, and when she wakes up I just give her what is in the bottle. And it has prevented me from having to sit there with the cluster feeding period, which I personally like struggle with. Keep up with my fluids and with my food in general. I try to eat when she feeds approximately, so during the day I'm not too restricted with that. I just eat my meals and I snack according to my hunger levels, but at night time when I wake up to feed, I usually have a lactation cookie, which I'm not quite sure if they make a difference or not, but I love them. I think they're so delicious, so it's an excuse to eat a cookie anyway. They don't taste like normal cookies because of the brewer's yeast. It's a little bit bitter, but I think it's still very delicious. And I drink 3 glasses of water every time I breastfeed. I do it as much as I can with every feed. I'm very good at doing it at night time because we're at home, but I'm not the best at doing it like from late afternoon, like during the day, because a lot of the time we're out and about and it's a little bit hard to have water. So if we are at a restaurant or a cafe or something like that, that's when I have my water. But if I'm breastfeeding like on the go at a park or something like that, then I obviously don't if I don't have water. So it kind of makes up for it because I do drink it religiously, like overnight and in the morning. With breastfeeding, just expect it will hurt initially for the first 2 weeks or so. It does go away and it does get better, so just know that. Now, when you are trying to establish a routine for the baby, and in terms of like the breastfeeding, what I would do when the baby wakes up, I would take them out of the swaddle blanket just so they wake up and have a bit of a stretch and they just feel like something has happened, and then there's a bit of movement, slight bit of stimulation. I would put them on the breast, so I start with one side and then I'll let them feed for as long as they want, but there is also a limit to it. I would change the nappy halfway through. I would put them on the second breast, and if they're content, if you feel like they don't want any, I would just leave it at that. I usually burp in the middle and afterwards as well. They start to get a little bit like squirmy and wriggly when there is a bit of wind in their belly. My favorite burping position is to just pop over the shoulder and pat them on the back. It's my favorite position because first of all, when they are on your shoulder, it does put a little bit of pressure on their belly, so it helps it bring it up, and patting also will move the wind up. In total, I would leave the breastfeeding with the nappy change, with the burping, with everything like that as a maximum at an hour, because after that they're probably way overtired and they're not breastfeeding or they're not feeding efficiently. So I would just take them over the breast and I would start their settling process. Now we'll make another video about the settling, resettling, sleep aspect of a newborn, so keep an eye out for that. Now if the baby is sleepy while you are breastfeeding them, what I would do is just like tickle their back or try to like take them off, talk to them for a bit, stimulate them so they wake up a little bit. It could be a little bit tricky in the beginning when they are a newborn, because newborns tend to be like quite sleepy, especially at the breast. So as I said, for the first week I would just feed baby whenever they want to, because you are really trying to establish supply. But from there onwards I would try to stretch them out to every 3 hours. Now I do feed on demand, guided demand, that's what I like to call it. After the week they will want to feed probably still quite frequently, but for them to build up that 3-hour stretch, you probably need to stretch them out like once for a 3 hour. So you feed them say at 12 o'clock, 12 midday, and they will want to feed like 11. What I would do is just try to stretch them out, try to settle them, whether it's like by rocking them, by holding them, putting them in a baby wear, in the pram, or whatever it is. Try to stretch them out for 3 hours, and then they will be quite hungry at say the 3 p.m. mark, and then you would feed them, and hopefully that will get them into the routine of feeding every 3 hours. So you just really need to do it once, that stretch out, and then they will quickly build up the appetite to feed every approximately 3 hours. So at 0 to 6 weeks I would minimum feed every 2 hours, no less, and at 6 to 12 weeks I would feed every 3 to 4 hours. The minimum is 2.5 hours. Now I will get back into that as to why I said 2 hours and 2.5 hours into the next video. It does relate to their settling and sleeping techniques. Before they go to sleep as well, I would give them a top-up feed. That is probably when they are past the 6-week mark, when they're not really taking the hour to feed anymore, when they're feeding in the first half an hour of the hour. Give them a top-up feed at the end, and that helps them like settle down and quieten down and like wind down a little bit, and it does help for them to have a longer sleep stretch. I would aim for about 5 feeds during the day before you go to bed, and hopefully that will prevent them from getting all the calories at night time, and hopefully they will do a longer stretch overnight. Now at the 0 to 6 week mark I would let them only do a 5-hour stretch overnight. I've never had the trouble to like have to wake any of my kids up beyond the 5-hour mark. We usually do go at the 4-hour mark where they need to feed overnight. I've never like had to set an alarm or something, but that's like the general guide. So they do get about 6 to 8 feeds in a 24-hour period, which should be sufficient calories. And how you know that they're feeding enough is 2 factors. They are putting on weight, a good amount of weight, and the second thing is that they have dirty and wet nappies. So they usually say about 6 wet and dirty nappy. And the tricky thing is with the feeding and with the newborn phase initially is that they have a lot of tummy issues. Now the 2 products that I found really helpful are Ruga, which is a natural product and it's made out of rhubarb and ginger. That's why it's called Ruga. And the second thing is gripe powder. The Ruga you give before you feed, and the gripe powder you give after you feed, and it helps them burp. Guys, those are the points I really wanted to share with you in terms of my breastfeeding journey and what I found helpful and the things that I struggled with. If you have any more questions, please leave them in the comments section down below, and please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it and you found it quite helpful. And I look forward to making videos of a similar essence, and look out for my 0 to 12 week settling and resettling and sleeping techniques. And I'll see you next time. Bye.